Bonjour tout le monde. Donc la journée a commencé très tôt pour quelques-uns d'entre nous aujourd'hui. Maintenant on continue avec deux annonces pour vous. Je me permets d'attirer votre attention sur le paquet d'infractions du mois de mars que nous venons de publier. Les décisions prises aujourd'hui dans le cadre de ce paquet d'infractions incluent 6 lettres de mise en demeure et 15 avis motivés. Et on a aussi une décision de soumission d'une affaire à la Cour de justice de l'Union européenne. Et la bonne nouvelle dans ce paquet, c'est que nous avons décidé de clôturer 91 dossiers dans lesquels les États membres concernés, en coopération avec la Commission, ont mis fin à une infraction et assuré le respect du droit de l'Union. Donc, je vous invite à consulter le matériel de presse que nous venons de publier, où vous trouverez les détails par sujet et par État membre. And we pursue with the meetings of the Council today. So today there is a Competitiveness Council just across the street as usual, and the Commission is being represented by Executive Vice President Stéphane Séjourné. The ministers responsible for internal market and industry will discuss notably competitiveness, industrial policy, following the presentation of the Competitiveness Compass and the Clean Industrial Deal, and also a strategy for the single market. There is also on the agenda a discussion on e-commerce, the first 2 omnibus simplification packages, and the EU's carbon border adjustment mechanism. And at the end of this Council, a press conference is foreseen with Executive Vice President Séjourné around 6:30. So we would like, as usual, to invite your questions relating to competitiveness, to industry, to this, for this dedicated press conference. And that is it from us today, and we can proceed with your questions, starting here in the very center.
Hello, Blaž Muhorčić with the Slovenian Press Agency. I have a question for Tomáš, I think, about the new call for AI factories that was published today in Daily News. I would like to know if Slovenia received all the amount of the all the money that it asked for. So it's, I think, 75 million euros. And when can Slovenia expect the disbursement of these funds? Thank you.
Yes, Tomáš.
Hello, good morning, and we have indeed today selected 6 new proposals for AI factories, including in Slovenia indeed. I mean, when it comes to the budget, this is a joint budget, so there is a part, of course, paid by EU member state and another part paid by public money. This is a 50-50 percentage. Now, on the exact figure, I will have to check and get back to you.
Any other question to Tomáš? No, does not seem to be the case. A different topic, we can proceed. Yes, Nikolaus.
It's a question for Anna Kaiser. Regarding the readout of the meeting of Commissioner Dan Jørgensen with the US Secretary of Energy, where in the readout afterwards, Jørgensen said the EU is a very significant potential for the US energy industry, given that legally speaking, the EU is on track to reduce its fossil fuel imports in line with RePowerEU and Fit for 55. Does this mean that we're signaling to them that we're abandoning this?
Anna Kaiser.
No, we are not signalling to the US side that we are abandoning any of our policy objective. I think what we want to be signalling to the US is that we are a serious, relevant market to them going forward. And of course, with the fairly new, fresh government on that side of the pond, we are obviously keen to have a outreach and discuss everything that concerns energy as well, and this is precisely what the Commissioner was there for.
Yes, Nikolaos, you'd like a follow-up?
Quick follow-up. You also agreed the establishment of a high-level working group for cooperation on technical issues. Can you elaborate which files and technical issues this includes? Would it, for example, include the methane regulation?
We are still at the very early stage of this high-level working group that was announced literally yesterday. So we will keep you updated on when we have a bit more understanding of who is going to be taking part in it and how they will start organizing their meetings and indeed what topics will it cover going forward.
Good. Any other question to Anna-Kaisa on energy and climate? No. Then we can move on, and I take there in the center again.
Hi, thank you. Vibor Vlajnić, Croatian Radio Television. So, question regarding the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The prosecutor's office, the main prosecutor of Bosnia and Herzegovina, issued an arrest warrant for the president of the second entity, Milorad Dodik, president of Republic of Srpska, also for the prime minister of Republic of Srpska and the president of the parliament. So how does EU see all those developments? Is it concerned? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm given signals that we will need to come back to this one. Okay, so we noted well your question. And name will get back to you. We don't have the information at this stage. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, Zoltán Bugnyár from Hír TV Hungary. In the light of agreement in Jeddah, will the Commission change its pro-war policy in the near future?
In the light of, I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Agreement in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia,
in Jeddah, okay,
between the United States and the Ukraine.
Yes, Anita, please. We have.
Thank you very much for your question. I would like to point you out to the statement made by the High Representative on behalf of the EU. We welcome the outcome of the US-Ukraine talks in Saudi Arabia, including the proposals for a ceasefire agreement, humanitarian efforts, and also the resumption of the US intelligence sharing and security assistance. So we are ready also to do our full part in supporting the upcoming steps together with Ukraine, the United States, and other partners. Yes.
The European Union and the Commission has a really pro-war policy. That's what we are hearing the very last weeks also. So is it going to change?
On this one, let me say very, very clearly, the EU and the European Commission have a pro-peace, pro-lasting and fair peace policy. Any other question? Yes, please.
Thank you. Vitaly Sizov, UATV. In this conclusion or declaration after this negotiation, it mentions that EU will, European countries or EU will be participate in possible negotiation. How you see this participation? Have you started some consultation with the Ukrainian side, and who may represent EU during possible peace negotiation? Thank you.
Thank you. We're in constant touch with our Ukrainian counterparts. Our position has been always clear that there can be no negotiations on Ukraine without Ukraine and Europe, because it affects the security not only of Ukraine but also of Europe's security. So, as specified in the statement, the EU is ready to do its part, and we are there to support throughout.
Yes, Vitaly, a follow-up?
but maybe you have some idea how you see this participation through some envoy or high representative or some European leaders. Thank you.
The High Representative has as a top priority Ukraine. This is also how she symbolically started her mandate on day one, together with Commissioner Kos and the President of the Council, Costa, in Ukraine. And throughout these 100 days, she has put in all her energy and efforts throughout the talks, be it on the sanction side against Russia with 16 sanction packages, be it through support to Ukraine as specified with her military aid initiative.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Tatiana Vysotska, European Pravda, Ukraine. I would like to ask a question about this military aid initiative of High Representative. She proposed to give Ukraine really multi-billion aid. It includes air defense, missiles, ammunition, and so on. Is it still on the table? Is it still actual? And is work going on to expand it to some concrete proposal, and is it going to be presented on the European Council meeting in the end of March?
The proposal is on the table. We're working with the member states. Discussions are ongoing to ensure that Ukraine is strong, that we provide ammunition, that we provide air defense system and everything that Ukraine needs, indeed.
But what about the European Council meeting? Will it be in the agenda or not?
This will be discussed, but I'm happy to come back to you with further details when needed, and also this Friday, where there will be a specific point on a briefing ahead of the FAC.
Okay, we proceed. Yes.
Yes, Stefan is a table media. It's more on ReArm Europe. I think it's maybe more for you, Paula. The Dutch Parliament voted against this program, not to endorse it. Does this have any effect on the discussions? I think, if you can say something about it. Thank you.
Well, the discussions, as you know, will take place in greater detail next week at the European Council, where this subject is on the agenda, and that will allow us to see where we go next. In that regard, the Commission will also come forward with the legal proposals reflecting the proposal that President von der Leyen put on the table last week. And so this will be the moment to see how it will be taken forward by the Member States also. Another question? Good. We seem to have a question online. If there's no question in the room, from Peter Kappan.
Yes, thank you. My question is a follow-up. Does this proposal for making use of the national escape clause, does it need unanimity among the states, or can each country decide for itself?
Okay. That will be for Balázs, right? Yes.
Hey, so the answer is in Article 26 of the Preventive Arm Regulation. The procedure is as follows. So it is for member states to decide if they want or not to activate the national escape clause. If they do, it is for the Commission to assess if the relevant conditions are met or not met. And then if we conclude that indeed the conditions are met, then we move the file to the Council, and the Council takes a decision by a qualified majority. So this is the fundamental procedure that applies here.
Okay. Any still on this subject? Yes, please.
Hi, it's Nacho from the Spanish newspaper El Confidencial. I have a question related to the national escape clause and about the government expenditure back function, this COFOG thing. The Commissioner Dombrovskis was talking about this yesterday. He explained that he favored a wide COFOG, and we don't speak COFOG. So does this include, for example, spending on migration, on border, on migration management, or, for example, cybersecurity? Or does this, even if it is a wide understanding of COFOG, it's not included here, and we cannot understand it as defense expenditure? I'm talking about the defense part of COFOG.
Yeah, that's a very good technical question. So indeed, we are relying on COFOG, which is an international classification system when it comes to government expenditure. It is on this basis that member states have been reporting to us their defense expenditure in the previous years. COFOG is also embraced in EU secondary legislation. Now, I think it's a question of interpretation as to how far we go when it comes to defense expenditure, and I think this will be discussed at the European Council in the coming weeks and days. What we should be doing when it comes to this interpretation, but the idea would be to stick with the current approach, stick with COFOG, and not to embark on any legislative changes which might take a long time that we don't necessarily have at this point in time.
Yes, a follow-up?
Yeah, and in terms of interpretation, it's possible to have a wider interpretation without legislative changes. So how much scope do you have to be flexible on interpretation without legislative changes?
So I think in general, judging by my experience, the advantage of interpretation is that you don't need legal changes. So, and then how far you stretch the definitions and how far you go in interpreting legislation, that is really up to discussion. So this is something that will have to be discussed in the European Council and beyond.
Yes, Lorenzo, and still to Balázs.
Just to be clear on the question, does it include the COFOG now? Does it include the expenditure that is not strictly connected with defense, like cybersecurity, like the border management, etc., or not?
Look, I think the debate is the following. Right now, when it comes to defense expenditure, what we have been meaning by that is hardware, military hardware, and infrastructure typically. This has been the interpretation. Now, we have been hearing calls in the past weeks to go further and include a broader range of expenditures related to defense. And whether this can be done or not, this is again subject to discussions in the coming weeks.
Then I see Peter Kappen online. You still have your hand up. Was this a follow-up that you would like to ask?
Yes, it's a follow-up
okay.
To what Balázs just has explained concerning Article 26. Just to make sure that I got the right interpretation, that means that the proposal to the member states to make use of the national escape clause cannot be vetoed by one country, for example, the Netherlands.
Well, according to the applicable procedure, the Council decision is to be taken by qualified majority.
Okay, thank you. Good. Then we have one still online question from Sejta Amatovic.
Hi, can you hear and see me?
We can.
Hi, I'm Shayla Ahmatovic from Politico. So there is the EU-South Africa summit taking place tomorrow, and von der Leyen is attending along with Costa. Can you tell us any details on what is going to be discussed and when exactly they are meeting?
So they are meeting, but now I need to calculate what does that mean for Brussels time. I think it's more or less the same. So they are meeting, it's only +1. So they are meeting in the afternoon. As to the subjects, if somebody can help me, because I don't have the agenda with me, but the idea is really to strengthen the partnership with South Africa and discuss a number of subjects of common interest. If we don't have it here, we can come back to you on the more concrete agenda. Yes, Nicolas.
On the topic of the EU-South Africa summit, there's an ongoing JTP, which the US has left last week. Will the EU commit to filling the gap left behind by the US as part of the JTP with the South Africans?
Do we have information on the JTP? JTP standing for Just Transition Plan. Partnership, exactly. Let's remind ourselves of our abbreviations so that everybody understands what we're talking about. Just Transition Partnership with South Africa. Yes. Anna Kaiser.
So, yes, indeed, it is correct that the US has also withdrawn from this Just Energy Transition Partnership. And the remaining parties who are still part of it and very much committed have also been informed. It does not, the US withdrawal does not impact the other members' commitment to supporting these partner countries in achieving their ambitions to accelerate energy systems transformations. So we basically can measure this a little bit by the investments that they are making, ongoing pledges in the JET TP pipelines, and these are demonstrating that there is still the ambition and the commitment. And of course, we from the European Union side look forward to continue working very, very closely with the remaining partners and without the US this time.
Nicolas,
quick follow-up. The question wasn't whether we would continue the JTP, but whether we would increase our commitment and or funds contributed to the JTP in response to the gap.
There is, we currently have the amounts that of the pledges that the parties have submitted to this, and this is of course a conversation that needs to be had not just within the European Union but with the other partners as well, that how to bridge this gap indeed.
Okay, good. Any other question? No. We conclude. There are questions. Sorry. Oh yes, there are questions. Not for Anna Kaiser. We changed the topic. Okay, Jorge.
Yes, hello, Paula. I wanted to ask about the return regulation that was presented yesterday. It was very notable that the Commission did not carry out an impact assessment before presenting this regulation. And I wanted to ask, what are the reasons for this? Why no impact assessment was carried out, given the consequences that this regulation will have on migrants and also national authorities? Thank you.
Marcus, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Jorge, for the question. Indeed, no impact assessment was carried out. This was due to the urgency of proposing new rules in the area of return. However, let me reiterate that the proposal is informed by the wide range of consultation studies and evaluations that we have made. The Commission has carefully assessed several options, consulted stakeholders, held strategic exchanges with EU member states, and analysed available data. On top, a Commission staff working document will set out the consultation process leading up to the proposal, as well as an analysis of the key policy options considered.
Thank you, Magnus. Yes, Jorge, following up.
Thank you, Marcus. So during this analysis that it was not an impact assessment, but as you said, you conducted analysis and checked data. Did you look into the possible consequences of outsourcing? Because in Article 17, you include the option for member states to establish agreements with third countries so they can set up so-called return hubs. Did you look into the consequences, legal consequences, human consequences, logistical consequences that this outsourcing could have for asylum seekers and also member states who want to do that project? Thank you.
So our information, stakeholder consultations and analysis are for the whole proposal, so yes.
Okay, good. Any other question to Marcus? No? Still to Marcus? Yes, please.
Thank you. Silvia Yusuf from El País newspaper. It's more on the impact assessments because maybe not just on this regulation, but there's a growing concern among civil society about the decision of the Commission of not doing impact assessments on several changes in legislation, etc. I understand there's a sense of urgency, but I'm wondering myself if this is a new policy or I haven't been here that long, so I lack the background if 5 years ago this was also a routine, but it seems more and more often that you decide not to do impact assessments arguing urgency, but I understood that impact assessment were just very important in order not to have backdrops later. Thank you.
No, I can confirm that the Commission does stick to its policy of accompanying legal proposals with impact assessments. As you said, indeed, in some occasions, the sense of urgency means that there is no possibility to do such an impact assessment. In those cases, we very often look into alternatives. I'm thinking, for instance, last year of the Net Zero Industry Act, where we were really under urgency to put forward the legal proposal, which was then accompanied by a much more comprehensive assessment of the proposal a few weeks after the proposal was on the table, so that it could also still be considered for the co-legislators. So we try, when there is no impact assessment, we try to then look into other possibilities to convey the analysis that is necessary to make an informed decision. Any other question to Marcus on any other topic? Yes, please.
It's on tariffs. So Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said that Australia would not impose reciprocal tariffs on America as other nations have done, including the EU today. So I just want to understand, what was the thinking behind the EU imposing the reciprocal tariffs? Do we have any data proving the success of this when it was previously imposed and executed by Brussels? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for your question. We just need to be precise here. What happened this morning wasn't to do with reciprocal tariffs. What happened today was the imposition of tariffs by the US on EU, or rather on all imports into the US of steel and aluminium products, including the EU, and we have subsequently issued the EU response to those US measures. What you're talking about is reciprocal tariffs, which is something the Trump administration has alluded to doing but not yet done.
Thank you. Any other question to Olaf? Yes, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Bibiana from Norwegian News Agency. I'm wondering, from April 1st, the retaliation tariffs to the US will be in place, but are there any plans to take up the sort of general tariffs on say, steel and aluminium that will go for every country, and is there a timeline for when this can happen? Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Bibiana. I'm not sure I fully understand. You're asking me about tariffs in the wider sense, or are you asking me again about Norway? You wanted about Norway, is that it?
The tariffs in the wider sense, which has to go for every country according to the WTO rules. Does that make it clear?
So you're referring to the steel safeguard we have in place until June 26. Okay, very good. So we can't be prescriptive about what will happen after 2026 at the moment, but we've made very clear, the President has made very clear that, that finding a solution to support the European steel sector is a priority. That's why a strategic dialogue on the steel sector was set up, and this is one of the questions that's being discussed in that group. And so that's certainly something we are keeping a close eye on and will try to find a solution to as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, follow-up again, Vibor Vanic from Croatian Radio Television. If the US reaction to these European countermeasures are doubling their game, like Trump threatened to do with Canada, is the EU ready to, go forward with its countermeasures?
Thanks for your question. Look, we're not going to get into that kind of speculation here today. We've made very clear from the get-go that if the US followed through on its threats of reimposing imports on steel and aluminium from the EU, that we would react, and we have. We've made very clear that if the US should move towards the type of reciprocal tariffs that was mentioned in an earlier question, if they move ahead with those, we will respond swiftly and forcefully as we have done today. So we're not going to go into hypotheticals other than to say we've been preparing assiduously for all these outcomes. We showed today that we can respond swiftly, firmly and proportionately in line with all our own EU and WTO rules, and that is the approach we will maintain for any future such measures that should be imposed unjustly upon us.
Okay, good. Any other question to Olaf? I don't know if it's to Olaf. Let's see. Jan Podpicelli from Bloomberg. Jan, are you there?
I am sorry. I wrote on the chat that it's not for Olaf.
Sorry. I hadn't seen it. Okay, but please, you can ask your question. We don't seem to have more questions for Olaf. Jan, back to you.
Right. Sorry, apologies. Yeah, I'd like to ask for an update regarding the previously mentioned by me Jim Jordan letters to the Commission. I wanted to ask whether there's any update regarding the potential answer to these letters by the President of the Commission. These letters were inquiring, of course, about digital investigations such as those under the DSA and the DMA. And I wanted to know whether any answers had been sent to Congressman Jordan.
Thomas.
Thanks, Jan. This first allows me to clarify also for Blaj that Slovenia, for its AI factory, will receive 67.5 million euro from the EU budget. Now, to your question, Jan, so indeed the state of play is still the same. So 2 replies were sent to the Chairman Jim Jordan, and the Commission will reply on the remaining letter.
Okay. Any other question? Nikolaus, you're laughing. Yes, you're very active today. From your active.
I have to make it count when I do show up. Just a quick one on simplification, given in the context of the compact. To my understanding, the Commission has never once called the omnibuses deregulation. EU ministers have taken to the stage to do that multiple times. I was just wondering whether it's time to change the communication strategy.
You'd like us to call it deregulation? Well, but you know, we're still doing a simplification through regulation. That's probably why it explains that we are keeping and sticking to the name of simplification, which is also what has been expressed as the major concern. The major concern has not been regulation as such, but the fact that sometimes it is difficult to navigate through the legislation, and therefore the term. Yes, please.
Magnus, more you're active. A recent poll showed that 46% of Canadians are in favor of joining the EU. Could the Commission clarify whether Canada is eligible for EU membership?
Well, first of all, we are honoured with the results of such poll. It shows the attractiveness of the European Union. It shows the appreciation of a very large share of Canadian citizens for the EU, for its values, to the point that they would see themselves as part of the European Union. And so that's certainly news that comes with great satisfaction to us. On a possible EU application, we will not go into that. There are criteria foreseen in the treaties, indeed, which foresee what is necessary for such, for an application, for an accession to take place. Yes.
So I'm not hearing you say no. Is that the point? I mean, it's just to say that. But
yes, I'm saying there is a procedure, and I'm saying that the results of the poll are very welcome, and we've taken very good note. And it's not a surprise, because the EU and Canada are like-minded partners. We share many values and also strong historical connections. So it's a satisfactory outcome of this poll. Yes.
I have a question to Anwar on Syria. Could you confirm that the European Union did not invite the President of Syria to attend the Brussels conference next week? And could you confirm that you invited the Foreign Affairs Minister? This is one thing. My question on Syria, what is the European Union reaction to the political agreement reached by the transitional authorities in Damascus and the Kurds representatives in the country? And about the last Friday events, in your assessment, do you believe that the external actors worked in a coordinated way with the people of Assad, or of Assad officials, those who provoked the events, the very sad events last Friday? And are you in a position today to tell us how many countries, organizations will attend the Brussels conference next week, please? I have another question on Palestine, so I wait your answer and then I ask on Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nordin, for the question. Look, on the first, the Brussels Syria conference is a conference at ministerial level. Mr. Shaibani has been invited, which is not the case of Mr. Al-Shara, to also set the record straight on several reports that we might have seen going around. That being said and closed, look, on the recent developments in Syria and the wave of violence, I will recall here the language of the statement by the High Representative that was published yesterday on behalf of the European Union, so the 27 member states, where we have been vocal in saying that the European Union has been gravely alarmed by the widespread violence in Syria's coastal region over the last few days, which has caused a high number of victims, including many civilians. We strongly condemn the attacks by pro-Assad militias against security forces. We also condemn in the strongest possible terms the horrific crimes committed against civilians, including summary killings, many of which have been allegedly perpetrated by armed groups supporting the security forces of the transitional authorities. Now, regarding your question on SDF, we, as EU, welcome the agreement reached on the 10th of March between the transitional authorities and the Syria Democratic Forces. This agreement could pave the way for increased stability and a better future for many Syrians. We do encourage the parties to work on the implementation, and we stand ready to further support them. And last angle of your question, if I recall, was on foreign actors. We have been clear, the EU once again calls for the full respect of Syria's sovereignty, unity and territorial integrity. We are also committed to supporting a peaceful and inclusive transition away from malign foreign interference, because we have also seen foreign information manipulation, including by foreign actors, to stir further violence and instability. That's what I can say at this stage. Thanks.
Yes, please.
It's now more than 10 days that Israel stopped the humanitarian delivery to the Gaza population, plus they officially cut the electricity for a few days in this time. This is a very flagrant violation of the international law. What is your assessment? What is your reaction? Any effort that the European Union is deploying now to alleviate the situation? Thank you.
Thank you, Nordin. The announcement that you are referring to by the Israeli Energy Minister on immediate halt of electricity supply to Gaza came following the decision by Israel to cut humanitarian aid to Gaza. It's inconsistent with the ultimate priority of maintaining the ceasefire in Gaza, ensuring the release of all the hostages, and working towards the reconstruction of Gaza. We need to be clear, any measure denying fundamental rights to services that are essential to people's daily life will further increase the suffering. The EU remains deeply concerned about the humanitarian situation in Gaza, and it is our priority to increase aid and facilitate access to it. The EU will continue to play its part to improve the delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza.
Yes, a follow-up.
Do you consider cutting electricity to civilians is a war crime, is a violation of international law? Do you consider that as a war crime or a violation? Yes or no? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. This is your qualification. I'll revert back to you bilaterally. Thanks much.
Any other question? To Anwar? On a different topic, Lorenzo? Yes, please.
On the infringement package, there is something concerning Italy, and which I don't understand that could happen. The Commission is telling Italy that the system that the labeling system that has been imposed to companies in order to avoid the fact that sometimes it happens that they have products which have the same price than before, but then the content has been reduced. So it's a sort of increase of price per unit which doesn't appear on the shelf, it doesn't appear in the product. And the Italian law wants the consumer to know that, because it's a clear way to circumvent the inflation. And you now are saying, the Commission is saying that this is unlawful, this is something that is disproportionate, so the consumer should not know that they are trying to, with this tricky way, they're trying to rise the price without the consumer knowing it. I mean, this is something difficult to explain to consumers and to the citizens, that the Commission is going against this. Why are you opening an infringement procedure against this law? Thank you.
Leah, can you clarify this?
Thank you. Thanks for your question. I will try. As you know, we usually cannot say much more than what we published already in the daily news. But I think, what you say, the Commission definitely acknowledges what Italy has been doing with this law in providing more information and more transparency for consumers. That being said, we also need to look at proportionality of the measures. And I think here it's important to acknowledge that labeling is also one of the barriers in the internal market, and voila, they seriously undermine the free movement of goods. So I think what we have wanted to point to is that perhaps less restrictive and more proportionate options could be available, such as displaying the same information near the products concerned. So that's a bit our thinking at this moment, and then of course we will have to see how the case develops.
Yes, Lorenzo.
Can you tell me, this is an infringement procedure which the Commission has chosen to open? I mean, it is up to the Commission to decide whether to open or not an infringement procedure on something like that, if I understand well. So it is not a sort of obligation by the Commission to open an infringement procedure in cases like this. It's just a choice. It's a political choice of the Commission. Am I correct? And also another thing from before. I mean, on Canada, I think there is Article 49 of the Treaty of European Union that says that it must be a European state that asks for. So I wanted to understand whether you were saying that this is not the case. Isn't Canada? Is Canada a European state? Sorry.
On your second question, Lorenzo, indeed that's why I referred to the criteria foreseen in the treaties, and you are specifying which article we're talking about. So for a country to become a member of the EU, there are criteria foreseen in the treaties, including the one you just mentioned. On the infringement, yes, Leah.
In general, yes, indeed, if I got your question right, I mean, the Commission, as the guardian of the treaties, has a certain discretion when deciding to pursue the infringements.
But always having in mind also the consumer interest. So what you mentioned before, it's also important to be said that the consumer interest and the consumer rights is a guiding principle of the Commission in its actions.
Yeah. But just to add, it's indeed a little bit also a balancing test. So I don't think anyone puts into question the need that the consumers are informed. But we also don't want to create additional barriers to the internal market. So we want to see which kind of solutions would be win-win for both in this case.
Thank you. Any other question in the room on a different subject? No, we have then a question which is probably the final one online from David.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you, Paola. In fact, it's a follow-up on this infringement for Italy. I'm wondering if the Italian government has notified this measure via the TRIS system, so as a technical barrier. And if it has followed all the procedure that normally applied in these cases.
No, indeed, and I didn't mention this before. The measure was adopted during the standstill. So Italy did notify the draft measure, but then it didn't consider the detailed opinion that was issued by the Commission. There is always a standstill period which follows the notification. So indeed, the procedure has not been, let's say, fully followed, and that's also covered by the letter of formal notice that we sent today.
Thank you. David, do you still have your hand raised? But I guess that's...
Yes. I'm learning the fascinating process of the TRIS case by case. So if I may, a second follow-up on this issue. I'm correct if I say, in general, not in this case in particular, that since Italy has not respected all the procedure of TRIS, and Italy didn't take into account the opinion of the Commission, national court should not apply the law that has been adopted. Thank you.
I would need to check that whether the Italian courts should then set aside this this national legislation. Let me check.
Yeah. We're also learning with your questions, so we'll double check and get back. Good. I don't see any other questions. Then, yes, there is still. Yes.
Question on Iran. On
Iran
nuclear program. President Trump is sending a letter or messages to Iran via some countries in the region, Russia and China and Iran are meeting about the nuclear program. My question is about the European Union position in this period. Do we still consider always that the European Union is coordinating the JCPOA talks, or it's the role of the European Union is going to its end soon? Thank you.
Yes, anyway.
Yes, thank you, Nordin, for this question. Look, the EU 27 policy towards Iran is outlined and has always been outlined in the Council conclusions of December 2022 and complemented by the European Council conclusions of October, March and April 2024. Now, regarding the nuclear issues, the EU remains in compliance with the JCPOA that you have mentioned and the UN Security Council Resolution 2231. A sustainable diplomatic solution to the alarming expansion of Iran's nuclear program is more urgent than ever. The objective of preventing a nuclear-armed Iran is shared by the whole international community and strongly supported by the EU. We do fully rely on the IAEA and as the sole international body in charge of independent monitoring of the Iranian nuclear program under that resolution. And I will also recall here the remarks by the High Representative at the UN Security Council yesterday when she mentioned that we do support multilateralism, not where and when it is in our interests, but because it is always in the collective interests. And in that vein, the constant expansion of Iran's nuclear program fully contradicts Iran's own commitment as endorsed by the Security Council in the 2231 resolution.
Yes.
Do you believe that the European Union still has a role to coordinate the nuclear talks in the near future, or you see that also the agreement of 2015 should be adapted because it's outdated now because of the Iran development program, and or are you forcefully going to leave that to the United States and U.S. administration of Trump administration and Iran? Thank you.
Thank you, Nordin. Look, the role of the EU is and has remained unchanged, as I have said in my prior intervention, and the role of the EU vis-à-vis the JCPOA remains as well valid and as it has always been. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. And to conclude, just to come back to the question on South Africa summit, who was that? I don't know if a colleague already left. Okay. That was online, indeed. So just to recall, because in the meantime I also got the information. So this is, of course, a summit, so with the participation both of President von der Leyen but also of President Antonio Costa. It is the first EU-South Africa summit since 2008. It is an opportunity to reaffirm Europe's commitment to its unique partnership with South Africa and to strengthen our strategic ties. Also, it will be used to support South Africa's G20 presidency and prepare for the EU-African Union Summit, which will take place later this year. And in this context, in the context of this meeting, President von der Leyen sees it as really part of the strengthening of strong partnerships and diversification of strong partnerships with partners across the world. In this context, she will also announce an EU Global Gateway investment package with South Africa meant to boost investments which are mutually beneficial through grants and public and private loans from European and local financial institutions. It's the concept of Global Gateway that you may be familiar with. And in this particular investment package, the idea is to also support, and it's been mentioned by another question this morning, it's also meant to support a just energy transition with investments notably in green hydrogen projects, critical materials, with the accompanying local workforce. So that's one aspect of this global gateway investment package. The other one is strengthening connectivity infrastructure like transport corridors and ports, and finally strengthening South Africa's vaccine production capacity and boosting local pharmaceutical value chains. And in addition, there will also be a signature of a collaboration agreement that aims to support South African hospitals to accelerate the diagnosis and treatment of cancer. And allow me to refer you to a press release that was published yesterday in the context of this visit. And with this, we conclude our midday today. Thank you very much for your participation, and see you tomorrow.